Hi, this is Janet Gowan welcoming you to another episode of Love Letters Live. And this is so complicated what we're going to get here. I want to introduce my guest, Michael McHale. Michael, I'm going to let you just say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Now, I know you're an actor and you've got quite a lengthy you know, list of credits, right?
Yes, yes.
What kind of
And
roles do you what kind of roles do you prefer and usually take?
well, it seems like my three ones that I get a lot are gay man. I don't know why. Um, Drag queen. That
Oh,
one I
those
know
are
why.
fun. Yeah, okay.
And clown. I that was my first job in LA was a clown.
Is
So
that
I've done
right?
a lot of clowns.
I say clown like at parties or circus or what?
Um, at parties, but on TV and in
Uh-huh.
movies. I was Bobo the Clown in the Michael Jackson film for Lifetime back
Oh,
in 2018.
uh-huh.
Yeah. That was kind of a sad shoot because I everyone was sad on set and they were
Oh,
like, you have to bring everybody up because the
okay.
scene was very sad.
I
So,
think
but
clowns have historically been very important for humankind
absolutely. They bring
forever.
joy.
Jesters and yes,
Yep.
bringing joy. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something because I know that your acting career is wonderful. I also know that you have two complicated stories kind of running side by side. And if we could talk about those, let's talk about AIDS first, I guess.
Absolutely.
Now,
That's what brought me here.
I
So
know.
that's a great idea. Yeah.
Okay, and to start off, I was kind of aware. I'm not so sure that everybody is very um, aware of the actual difference between HIV and AIDS.
Yes.
Why don't you clarify that? I think that would be good to do once and for all.
Absolutely. So according to the CDC, this is their ruling. Uh, Everybody has T cells in their body that fight off. It's their immune system. Most people have 1,300 to like 2,000 T cells that are always fighting, fighting, fighting.
And
When
they're
you
all
have
throughout your bloodstream?
it's like a wall in our body that fight off infections, and
Okay.
so when you have AIDS, you have less than 200 T cells in your body. At one point, I had four,
Oh my
and I
goodness.
named them Candy, Brandy, Sandy, and
I read that.
Dandy.
Yes. You are a
Yeah,
clown.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they had given me in 1990, they had given me 7 to 9 years to live. And I'm
Even with
like,
that
no.
low a T cell count.
I at that time I had 300 T cells,
Oh, uh-huh.
and I think it was like that was kind of like it was still in the new phase. Maybe I think AIDS was like in the teen years then, because it was 1990 and it was still a death sentence.
Yeah.
There was no treatment like there is now. And I said, well, I don't accept that. It's like I have to be on love letters in 33 years. So I'm not
Let me ask you
accepting
something.
that.
When you say, okay, so there was no treatment. So when you were first diagnosed, there was nothing to do?
There was a treatment called AZT,
I remember that.
which all of my friends were on at the time. Sadly, none of them are with us anymore. My
Terrible.
one friend described it as basically drinking Drano.
Uh,
It killed everything in your body.
uh-huh.
And we called it friendly fire because it
Yeah.
it helped you, like my one friend Michael Smith, who actually encouraged me to move to California. It extended his life maybe 3 years, 4 years longer.
Just,
But he went through hell. I mean, we would talk on the phone all the time, and he spent most of that time, most of his life on the toilet,
uh,
sick from taking the AZT.
yes. Well,
But he lived three
what
years
happened with
longer.
you then?
Well, because at the time, and I still am, I'm very drug free. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't do any of that stuff. So they wanted me to take AZT, and I said, AZ, no, I ain't going near that. No, no, no,
So
because I had
you
already
were never drinking or doing any of that.
no. I did drugs and I smoked marijuana in high school. I quit in the middle of 10th grade, and I drank maybe 6 times in high
Oh, well,
school.
that's
And I
okay.
was like, it bored me. It didn't do anything for me. So,
Okay.
so I just didn't want to go down that path. And I had already seen my friends have a miserable life with it. And I just was, yeah, that's not for me. I chose to do comedy instead. I literally started to do stand-up comedy too. And we can get into that later and stuff because that's part of the whole journey and stuff too. That
Really? I mean, I probably shouldn't be laughing. It sounds like a dreadful
no, no,
experience,
no.
but
Laugh. I want to make AIDS funny again. I mean, it never was, but yeah.
no. Oh,
But but I think it's important that people understand. So now, but when I understand the CDC is, I think they're changing what it means to have AIDS now because we have
oh.
all of the wonderful treatments now and stuff. So things are shifting.
But is
And
the difference between the AIDS and HIV positive the number of T cells that you're living with?
yes, yes,
Okay, that's what I thought.
because
So it's a
I
continuum.
I never had I had like I went down in 20 what was it 97 was the first time mine plummeted the most, and it was 2 months after my mother passed away.
Oh,
So I attribute it to it's definitely stress related. I believe personally all illnesses are related to stress in some way.
could
But
be.
my mother was my best friend in the
Oh
whole
my.
world, and she died suddenly, and she was only 50. She was pregnant with me when she was 18, and it completely knocked me down. So they were like, "Yeah, you have AIDS." So from 97 until 2011, I had full-blown AIDS
But were you
for
feeling horrible physically?
oh yeah, yeah. I was exhausted. It was just lots of trips to the porcelain bus. Yeah, and I was losing weight. I was losing a lot of weight because I've been anemic since I was 2. I
Oh,
got that from my dad's side. Uh, so because we're Sicilian and it's a special Sicilian anemia. And so with the AIDS and the anemia, because of that, I've had a lot of transfers. Or
uh-huh.
what do we call that?
Transfusion.
Transfusions. I've
Right.
had many, many blood transfusions because of the two meeting and saying, "Oh no, what's happening?"
So you spent
So
a good deal of time in hospitals.
yes, from
Uh,
the age 2 and up. I used to every week, not every weekend, I think every other weekend, I would be at the Children's Hospital in Boston.
And what I guess it's a silly question, maybe, but what has kept your spirits so buoyant through all of this? What I would just have to see is terrible.
Um, well, I mean, a lot of it has to do with my faith. I mean, I became a born again Christian when I was 14. But even before that, I loved God so much. I
Oh,
would pray for everyone. My grandmother would be like, "What are you doing?" I would be praying for everyone in our neighborhood by name, by their apartment number. I just
oh,
have always had a close relationship with God. The first book I ever read was the Bible because it was on our telephone stand, like most homes at the time. It was at the bottom, the big white Bible underneath the telephone, which people under 30 wouldn't get that, the rotary phone and
so you were
but
religious at a very young age. Did your family support this? Do they understand it?
oh yeah, I mean because I was Catholic until my 14th or 15th 14th birthday.
Oh, and then
And
you
then I became born again, and
somebody
that
invited you to do
spoke
that?
to me more. Yes, my cousin Debbie invited me on the Sunday school bus, and I felt so at home. And I loved it until I escaped when I was 20. But that's a different story.
Well, maybe, but that seems to be
They're all colliding. They're all
connected.
yeah.
So would you, well, where do you stand religiously now? You say you escaped.
It turned out they ended up being a cult. I went with the
Oh, where
purest
you're
intentions.
particular, I see. Uh-huh.
Yeah, the church I was in. I personally, Jesus is still my best friend. I love my husband. He's number two. Jesus has been number one.
So you're with somebody, you're not alone. You're not.
I have a wonderful husband. Yep,
Oh,
going on 20 years now.
oh my
Yep.
goodness. So not being alone is a wonderful thing.
Yes, there's been I there's been at least 13 times when I've woken up like from dying from AIDS, and he's sitting there right next to me, waiting for me to wake up. And yeah, it's quite he's quite an amazing man.
I bet.
Yeah.
So I know
And
it's
I
not
love him.
a story to tell
Yeah.
his story, but is he
Yeah.
AIDS free? I mean, he's not.
Yeah, no, he's just HIV positive. He's never
Yeah.
had AIDS, but he's had cancer,
Oh,
and he had a heart attack, and he died 5 times from heart. Yeah, he has an amazing story,
I
and
bet.
he's survived it all. He had lymphoma, and it brought him out to LA because he wanted to change. Thank God he came to LA
I'm
because
almost.
that's where we met.
That's not usual for me. Okay. Let
Yeah,
me just kind of drive myself back into being able to think.
yeah.
So you
Mhm.
okay, you say you attribute this to your faith, but is there more to it? Are the doctors confused? Is anybody
Well,
confused? Are they looking at you as a possible research
well,
area?
when I in 2011, that's when everything shifted for me. I attended a church, and I still do off and on, called Agape, with Reverend Michael Beckwith. Um, Oprah goes there. A lot of like high profile celebrities go there, and we would talk about me having AIDS, and I would say, can you pray for? And he would look at me and say, stop saying you have AIDS. And then I met one of my idols, Bob Proctor, who was in the movie The Secret, and I spoke to him about it too. And he said the same thing: stop saying you have AIDS.
Well, okay, that's interesting. So why?
Well, because we create. Well, this is how where it gets really good. So in January of 2011, I'm in an acting class with my mentor and closest friend, Dee Wallace,
Oh,
that from ET. And I brought a friend into this class. I was so excited. I did my scene, and she said, "What the heck is that?" And she went off on me, and I started crying, and I said, "I just want to be a great actor." And then all of a sudden, my body started shaking on stage, and I said, "Wait, wait, that's my problem. I keep saying I want to be a great actor. And every time I say that, I'm pushing it away." And I
uh-huh.
said,
As a
I
goal
am a great
unrealized.
actor.
Is that right?
Yeah. I
Uh-huh.
said, I am a great actor.
Yes.
And then I said, but wait a minute. This has nothing to do with acting, does it? And Dee looked at me and said, you're right. Keep going. And I said, oh, this has to do with me having AIDS, doesn't it? She's like, you got it, keep going.
Why?
And I said, I keep saying I want to be healed from AIDS. And she said, uh-huh. And I said, I need to stop that. I need to say, I am healed from AIDS. And she
So is
said,
that why people were saying, stop saying I have AIDS? So you
yep, yep,
define yourself differently?
exactly. So in that moment, in that class, on that stage, everything shifted. And I felt I could almost hear like something churning, like another, like an understanding. And I went, I'm going to start saying I am healed. So I did it for 2 months. And after 2 months, my doctor called me and he said, I don't know what you're doing, but you don't have AIDS anymore. And I said, because I stopped saying I had it. It's like I just stopped creating it. I stopped because I was very proud to walk around and say, yeah, I'm an AIDS survivor, la 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 la. And I was kind of like a unicorn. A lot of people I met never met somebody with AIDS. So they
Mhm.
were kind of like, ooh, somebody with AIDS.
Let me ask you something.
So
Do you know how many people? I mean, I, I I just don't remember how many people worldwide have died with of AIDS.
um
You know?
it's millions, but I mean I'm gonna look it up.
But
you know.
you stand out as a one in a million, really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
Okay.
it's definitely 40, like up to almost 50 million
Oh, you're looking at it.
globally,
Okay.
have died from AIDS. Yeah. So, so I was kind of like a miracle, and I ended up going on the news. I spoke
Oh,
at my church. I was asked to speak and share my story, and Reverend Michael would tell my story all the time on his radio show. And I have somebody in my church who overcame AIDS, and it really was about literally changing my story.
okay.
Because I loved going around. I spoke at hundreds of different meetings in hundreds of places, and I shared my story of living with AIDS.
Hmm. Do you
And
know
Dee would
if,
even, hmm?
well, I was just going to ask, do you know if other people with AIDS have followed your example and benefited in any way, or that's hard to know, isn't it?
I hope so. I hope people of any who have any illness will
Oh,
just take it. And another thing I did too, which is really fun, and I think you'll really love this. A couple of years before I overcame AIDS, I was working on a film, an Adam Sandler film, and people found out I had AIDS. I would bring like games on the set and bubbles and magic, and I would play while we were waiting to go in front of the camera. And people were like, what can we do for you? At the time, I had 23 T cells, so I had a
uh-huh.
lot at the time. And they said, what can we do? And I jokingly said, can you give me a T cell? And they were like, sure. And I jokingly took one off them as a joke. And then I thought, wait a minute, what if we could do this like in a visualization way? So I started a tea party where people would actually create the letter T for me in the most beautiful way, like
Oh,
artistically. And I put it online, and I got thousands of teas from all over the world. People I didn't even know. A guy serving in like Iran or Iraq. He's like, I heard your story. Here's a tea, and at the time I was doing environmental work at schools, at elementary schools, and I one sixth grade class, I actually told my story of having AIDS and about the Tea Party. And I came in on the last day. Whew, I'll never forget this. I came in on the last day, and the teacher said, the kids have a surprise for you. She goes, sit down right here. So I sat down, and one by one, every child came up and handed me a drawing of a tea.
hmm.
And I had 300 kids come up to me one at a time and give me their own personal drawing of a tea. And I'll send you some of them because they're really
I'd like to
beautiful.
see that.
And I cried my
Right.
eyes out. It was just
But this touches
amazing.
on something else too,
Hmm?
as in modern life. You're saying sixth graders.
Sixth graders.
So
Yep.
they're like what, 10 years old?
Yes. I think they were 10 or 11. Yeah.
And for a 10-year-old, I mean, they should be, and it's lovely to be so
Hmm.
sophisticated that they understand what AIDS is.
Yep.
It's just that they're so sophisticated in this and apparently comfortable in joining you in a conversation about it.
In the healing process.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I believe, because I would
You
literally
wouldn't have
sit
found
there.
that in 1950, I'll tell you.
No, no, no. But I would sit there for hours just looking. I have a whole book. I have 5 books full of
Hmm.
all the teas that people have made for me. And I would sit there and thank each person individually and go through them. And I would say, thank you for my tea. Thank you for my
Oh,
healing. Thank you for my tea. Thank you for my
yes,
healing.
yes, yes. Well, I
Yeah.
I want to kind of slide into something else because I mean
Yeah.
the power of what's written down
Yes.
is by me it's there's nothing quite so powerful.
No,
And
no.
I want to talk about, well, I am so largely about love letters and the power of letters. And
Yes.
can we talk about your father?
Yes. Absolutely.
And because I read about this and it was so complicated and so okay, so you go ahead.
Yeah. So
You didn't know
So
who he was, right?
so growing up, I never knew who my dad was.
What did
And
your mother tell you?
my mother, well, she would say, I don't want to talk about that right now.
Okay.
And because of mainly my grandmother, she was very strict. She didn't want to create the drama of it either.
Okay.
So I wasn't my mother wasn't allowed to talk about it. Um, so from age 6 to 10, whenever the doorbell would ring at the house, I would answer it. And if it was a guy, I would ask them quite bluntly. I would say, "Are you my daddy? Are you
Uh-huh.
my father?" And they would be like, "No, I don't think so." And one guy actually said, "I could be." I was like, "What? What?" So I didn't know anything about him. No one in the family knew who he was. And then on my 18th birthday, when I was going to college in the Berkshires at the church had a college, a Bible college, I got a letter from my mother, a love letter from my mother.
Really?
And
So
she
sad.
said, she said, "Dear Michael, happy 18th birthday." She said, "Your father's name is Robert Hennessy. I don't know if it's EY or just Y at the end. His family is from the South Boston area. He was a truck driver for Johnson and Johnson, and that's all I know about him. And I'm sorry I don't have more to share with you. I
And your
love you,
reaction was
Mom."
what?
My reaction was I went and grabbed the phone book and I started looking up Robert. I was so excited. I had a name.
Now, I have a
I had a
question to ask you.
name.
That kind of enormous news you would
Yes.
think would be best given in person, and yet you got it in a letter. Was there an advantage to that?
Yes, because I it was written down. My mother was she was very quiet, very humble woman, very shy, with the most beautiful voice. She had the voice of an angel. So I think this was easier for her because I wouldn't have been home until Christmas, and my birthday's in October. Me and John Lennon have the same birthday, and my buddy Tony Shalhoub. Yeah, October 9th. So my she knew she wasn't going to see me for like 2 months,
Uh-huh.
and it was my birthday, so it was probably the greatest birthday gift she could have given me
Really?
was his
So
name.
what happened following that? Because there was another shift, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I spent the rest of my life, I would call every Robert Hennessy that would be around the age, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, you couldn't really tell then because you just had the phone book. But I would go through the phone book and I would call. I talked to Robert Hennessy. Do you know Ellen Sue Garvey? No. Okay. Did you work for Johnson and Johnson Trucking? No. Okay. So if they didn't work for Johnson and Johnson Trucking, I knew that wasn't them.
Right.
And if they didn't know, well, they could have forgotten her by then. It would, what, 19 years later? I don't know. So I went through this process for many, many years. Um, I had a couple of close calls right before I moved to LA. I met a very cute guy at a bar down the street from my home in the north end of Boston. And we went to his little van and we talked and we made out. And then it was like his name was Sean. And I was like, what's your full name? And it's like Sean Hennessy. And I'm like, wait, what? And I go, I'm Michael Hennessy. Because let me back up. In 88, I changed my name to
Oh,
Hennessy
right. Okay. Yes.
because I really liked that name. I thought it was
Sure.
a cool name.
It is. Yes.
And my family name was Garvey. I grew up as like the baseball player.
Uh-huh.
Steve Garvey is actually a cousin. Um, so I grew up with Garvey, but I liked Hennessy. I liked how it sounded. So this guy and I were like, wait a minute. And he had the same spelling, everything. He goes, "Who's your dad?" And I go, "Well, I've never met him, but his name is Robert Hennessy." And he goes, "I have an uncle named Robert Hennessy." I said, "Is he a truck driver?" And he said, "Actually, he is." And I went, "Really?" I'm like, hold on. I go, would he be about this age? Trying to base it
Mhm.
out of like and he goes, yeah. And he looked at me, he goes, you know what? You actually look like my cousins who are like 19, they're twins, and you kind of look like them. And I'm like, I have twin brothers? And he's like, yeah, and there's three sisters. You kind of look like them. It could be. And I got really excited. I was
So
like, did I
what
really?
happened? What happened to change that?
So so I gave him my number and he said, I will talk to him about you. And if he wants to be involved, I will call him, or I will call you, or I'll have him call you. So for the next 6 months, I waited by the phone for Sean Hennessy to call me, and he never did. He never
Oh,
called. So I
okay.
was heartbroken. I was like,
Sure.
maybe that was him. I don't know. So, but I still, over the years, when the internet came out, I was on there looking up Robert Hennessy's, making phone calls, sending emails, going to people's homes if their name was Robert Hennessy. I need to apologize to all
Oh,
the Robert Hennessy's that I have you know tried to get in their
right.
lives.
The suspense is killing me.
I know. So in in 2016, my husband gave me the ancestry.com kit
Oh.
for Christmas with a beautiful note. And he said, I wish you all the best of luck in finding out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I was crying. I just bawled my eyes out. And I did the
Mm-hmm.
thing, I did the
Mm-hmm.
spit. And 2 months later, I get the results back. And the first person that popped up was a gentleman named John McHale. And I sent him a note and I said, are you in a relationship to Robert Hennessy? And I got an immediate, no, no relation. So I thought, he must be related on my mom's side. So I just swiped left and I just put him, away. And I started hitting all these other people who I knew weren't from my mother's side, from the
Mm-hmm.
Garvey side.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was related to Robert Hennessy. I went through hundreds of people on there, and everyone was like, nope, no Robert Hennessy. So now, flash forward to the weekend of Father's Day of 2020 during the pandemic. There's a lot of downtime because we're all sitting at home. I get an email from this guy from Ancestry saying, who's John McHale and who are you? Why do we have so much DNA? What's going on here? And I thought it was spam. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to ignore that. So then on Father's Day, 2 days later, on Father's Day, I put out a YouTube video called Searching for Robert Hennessy. I put it out every Father's Day, hoping that somebody will see it. Um, I made it like 6 years ago, and I put it out Father's Day. And this woman sends me a message on Facebook, and we're not friends, so it goes to spam. But I get a notice that she emailed me, and she says, I just watched your YouTube video looking for your dad, and I think we need to talk. And then she sent me my high school photo, and I sent her a message back, and I'm like, why are you sending me my high school photo? And she replied, oh no, that's my dad's high school photo.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
went, what?
So you found him.
So, well, she said, my dad's name is John McHale. And for the first moment in my 31 years of looking for my dad, I was like, Hennessy, Hennessy, Hennessy. For the first time ever, I thought, maybe my father was in a Hennessy.
Right. So, the only reason I'm kind of wanting to move ahead
Yeah.
is because Zoom is going to kick me off in 8 minutes, but go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, no, so I we chatted for 2 hours on Facebook.
Oh,
Then
you
we
did.
spoke on the phone. She contacted, my dad, and it turned out the guy who tried to contact me on Friday was a baby brother that
Oh
nobody else knew
my.
about either. He's 20 years younger than me. And so in one day, I went from being almost an only child, because I do have a half brother on my
Mhm.
mom's side, to being the oldest of seven,
Oh
like
my
in one day. It was
goodness.
like,
And you've been in touch with all of them and their family now.
yes, we did it all over Zoom. And then a year later, when we got the vaccines, I went and surprised them
Oh,
in April of 2021. I surprised each and every one of them. I filmed them all. I'll send you the videos.
I'd like to
And
see
I
it.
surprised every single one of them, and was like, I'm here, because they're all in Boston. They're all in New Hampshire and Boston and Revere. And the day I met my dad was one of the most incredible days of my life. It just, everything
Really?
shifted. He's one of the goofiest,
Oh, so
handsome
that,
devils.
all right. Well, that's what
Uh,
we get that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
See,
And I changed my name to his on December 3rd of 2020.
well,
I
let me ask you something. I usually say if you were to write a love letter now, who would it go to? And the power of letters is like built into your story, the one that your mother sent you.
Yes,
Have
yes.
you, you talked about when it's in writing. Have you ever written to these siblings or your dad?
I wrote to my dad like
Oh,
right
good.
away. I wrote to
Okay.
him, and I sent him photos of my mother. I sent him photos of me growing
Oh,
up, and I hadn't
okay.
talked to him yet. He didn't want to talk to me or the other son yet at the time.
Okay.
And
Oh,
then
this
in
is,
July,
yeah.
like a month later, my sister called me, and my sister Kim called and said, I'm with dad. He wants to say hi.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. He
you
gets
must,
on the phone, and the first thing he says to me is, Michael, I'm your father. So
oh,
he Darth Vadered me. That was my first conversation with my father. He
oh.
Darth Vadered me. And
So,
then I didn't know what to say. So I Chandler Binged him, and I said, I love you, man.
so
Because I didn't know what to
must
say.
feel, you must feel really complete in a new way for the rest of your life now.
I am. All of my siblings are amazing. And then I found another sister a year later.
My goodness. Well,
So
I want to thank you for doing this with me. This is just so
absolutely.
uplifting and miraculous in so many ways.
Don't give up. I had AIDS. They said no hope. I couldn't find my dad. They said no hope.
Okay.
And it's don't ever stop. I
Will
mean,
you send me pictures of your siblings and of your dad?
absolutely,
I'd like to.
absolutely,
Oh,
yes.
thank you, dear.
Today's the 3-year anniversary where my baby brother met my other three siblings. It was three
Okay.
years ago
Okay.
today,
Okay.
which is really fun.
I want to be
Yeah,
in touch with you again. I
absolutely.
want to see pictures and thank you. This has just been, I don't know what to say. It's been just great.
Oh, thank you for
I'm
having me. I
so
really appreciate
glad
it.
we met. I am going to be like
Yeah,
uplifted. Okay. Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'll
Mwah.
talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, dear.